Olli Posti, welcome to the Biohacking Secret Show.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here.
Awesome, man. Take us back. You've got an amazing story. Take us back to the spring of 2002. Where were you and what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, I remember I was playing tennis with my little brother. It was going quite well until it wasn't. And I couldn't really control my hands that well. And I also noticed the same with, for example, playing guitar. I just didn't have the motor skills anymore. So then the diagnosis was the MS, multiple sclerosis. And then, yeah, after that, of course, there wasn't much hope. And back then, there wasn't that much stuff in the internet either. And there weren't any books in my local library telling me how to heal MS. So I didn't think I had any hope. So I basically just went traveling and doing fun things like that until it wasn't fun to do anything because like you're so fatigued all the time. So you can't really enjoy pretty much anything anymore. So then I really started digging into the subject.
Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with MS, what's a cursory overview? What are some of the symptoms aside from degenerative motor skills and fatigue? What other things were showing up in your life, and what, based on the current medical understanding, what do we believe is the cause of MS?
Yeah, I have to say that I don't know that much about MS nowadays because I digged into the MS topic and I found out that it's impossible to cure. So I was like, okay, enough of this. Let me find out about health, as I'm sure many people nowadays take that kind of approach, because I think the naturopathic idea is that, and the alternative idea is that we people don't actually know that much about, for example, chronic diseases nor chronic health. The body knows much better. And we know a thing or two about how to support the body in what it does naturally, what it's kind of created to do, and what it cannot do when we do things very wrong in our lives and in our diets and so on. So after that, like nowadays when people ask me about different MS medications, I'm like, I have no idea. Like I haven't looked into that in like 15 years pretty much. So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. So you kind of, you had a moment where you did a little bit of research. You saw that
It's hopeless.
that
Like
it was
there's no cure. There's no cure. So why bother?
Right, exactly. And you guys may hear our bird Tula in the background. She gets excited by some of the podcast conversations that we have. Our stories are more similar than we may have even realized going into this, because when I first was trying to figure out what was going on with me back in 2011, and then I received a Lyme disease diagnosis, I started digging into the different forums online. I was watching documentaries at the time. What do we got there?
This is rhodiola from the northern Lapland or something like that,
nice.
with Finnish raw honey. So it's pretty nice.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I take a product by Gaia called Adrenal Health that's got a number of adaptogens: rhodiola, ashwagandha, schizandra. Oh, there we go. You got Gaia Liver Cleanse.
Yeah, Gaia is one of the best. So.
They're amazing. And yeah, so I had a similar experience. I watched a documentary called Under Our Skin that left me feeling hopeless about the situation. And then I realized that immersing myself in these conversations online of people who were depressed and just manifesting more helplessness, it wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. And on top of that, it wasn't giving me feelings that I valued in my life. And I made a big switch, much like you did. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to focus on this position that I'm in right now, which is it was an adversarial position with my own body. I'm like, there's an enemy inside me that I'm trying to kill, this bacteria. And that's what needs to happen for me to get better. And much like you, I made a shift to, all right, let's focus on what are the things that people are doing to experience radiant health and, and to experience a transformation when they've been diagnosed with conditions where maybe other people said that they couldn't. Do you remember the moment that you cut out a lot of the negativity and shifted your attention towards health rather than disease?
I don't remember exact moment, but I remember being in northern Thailand or something, like maybe early 2004 or something, and just when I would see a person who was just totally radiantly healthy, I would just go up to them, gather my courage, and go up to them and ask, and they would tell me about things that I'd never heard of from anyone. Like, for example,
what did you ask them?
Like, what's your secret? And
Okay.
they would maybe laugh, and then they'd be like, yeah, I do yoga, I do macrobiotic diet, or whatever it was. And then I always would follow those trails. I would look into those, and I would find something, and then through that I would find something else. So I just took it from there.
Nice. And do you recall some of the changes that you started making with your nutrition, with the integration of superfoods, biohacking, where you started experiencing changes in your psychology, your physiology, your emotional health? What were some of the things where you were like, all right, this is working?
Yeah. I was mostly studying stuff from Joseph Mercola back in 2004.
Oh, shout out to Dr. Mercola. He's been on the podcast. Yeah. He's a brilliant man.
Yeah, amazing. So, and through him, I actually found Mike Adams, whose page back then was newstarget.com. He's more political nowadays, but back then he's
Mike Adams
nutritional.
from Natural News, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so his stuff was really good back then. Nowadays, he doesn't talk so much about health and nutrition, although sometimes he does, and it's still good stuff. But yeah, those two guys really helped me on. And I think around 2005, let's say, at the end of 2005, and in December, I still remember I was sitting actually in my father's somewhere in his place, and I felt in my body that now this is actually going in a better direction, and I think I started crying or something, or it was such a nice feeling after many years of complete hopelessness. At that point, I had already I was kind of on the basic program. I mean, not eating so much white sugar, not so much white flour, not so much ultra-processed milk products, not so many ultra-processed industrial seed oils, basically. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things, and not so many additives, synthetic additives. And also, there were things that I was trying to do more of, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, of course, phytonutrients, true colors, just higher quality foods, those kinds of things. Nothing too special, but basic things like that. And then I had ordered the first superfoods, although I didn't know that word back then. Really high quality chlorella and spirulina. And I was doing those every day, like I think 3 to 5 grams of chlorella and maybe 6 to 10 grams of spirulina. Those were both really high quality. And then I also found some pretty good quality bee pollen. So those 3, and then just like better foods. And those were enough to get me to a point where I didn't have any asthma symptoms anymore. I used to have a pretty bad asthma since I was 10 years old. And I was never able to be more than 1 or 2 days without the chronic asthma medication. So those really helped me a lot. But yeah, and then a year from that, like in the late 2006, I was like, okay, now this is like I want this. So now I can start living again. But it took many years of studying everything I could find. So like you read something and then you try it, and you maybe loan more money from somewhere, or try to do some kind of work and just get some money from somewhere, and then try to apply, try to order that product, or just buy that better quality food or something, and then implement it into your lifestyle. So it was many years of that. So then, yeah. So like if I had already known everything I, for example, know now, it would have been maybe just a month or 2 to get me in a better condition. But it took many years because it was a learning curve, and there was nothing to really, like I had to kind of create and find and implement it all. Like I just didn't have to have the biohacking secret show back then or anything like that I could just like, okay, yeah, there's some stuff here. I just had to like, it took a long time to find those different pieces back then.
It's a lot of intelligent experimentation, kind of piggybacking on the work of people like Dr. Joseph Mercola and Mike Adams, ironically, both of which have had their websites suppressed by certain search engines and powers that be. Perhaps in part because they provide solutions that allow people to go an alternative route and not necessarily rely so much on medicalization and invasive surgeries and things like that. So it sounds like a lot of your journey, at least at the beginning, was nutrition based and looking to, you mentioned chlorella and spirulina, bee pollen, reducing sugar, processed foods, some of these things that we know to be inflammatory, rebalancing your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, reducing some of those inflammatory vegetable oils and industrial seed oils, and then kind of getting more of the plant-based and animal-based omega-3s in you. Were there other areas that you looked? Did you do anything with, I know you're representing Finland. Did you do anything with sauna or different types of exercise, stress management, things like that?
Not really, not knowingly. There was one other thing. I was trying out a lot of supplements. I was going to the local health food stores, and then I would go to the internet and buy the same products for much, much cheaper, those kinds of things. But I didn't really find much of a benefit back then, because I tried to find the better kind of quality, but it wasn't high enough. There were still all these excipients there and things like that. So it took me actually quite a lot of time since then to find out that even the better quality supplements, at least for me, are not really good enough. I think actually this guy called Kevin Trudeau, who is a very controversial guy also, he said in some interview back when that like the science of supplements, if something works and gives you benefit, it's based on research with the pure version, and then the company puts in all kinds of stuff in there, and they don't test that actual product. They can say that NAC does this, but our NAC actually doesn't, because it's full of crap. So that's the part that gets left out. So nowadays, whenever I use supplements, I have a ton of supplements here, and there's like absolutely no excipients anywhere, and it's very expensive. And it's only a handful of companies really in the whole world who make completely excipient free.
And when you say excipients, you're talking about additives.
Yeah, additives.
Magnesium stearate, things like that maybe they're to prevent clumping or issues with production, but don't necessarily add value or the results that the supplement is intended to create.
Yeah, and there's of course always an endless debate about like whether, for example, magnesium stearate, is it bad or not? For me, it's kind of the same as, are there synthetic additives in food good or not? I don't know, but they help me recognize bad quality food. Because if your food quality is good, then you don't need those additives to correct the bad quality. So it's kind of the same with supplements. With the long list of excipients, even if they are like high quality excipients, I don't know if those exist, but even if they were, still that would tell me something about the ambitions of the company, let's say.
That's interesting.
The level of ambition they have.
So
but still, like for example, with magnesium stearate, in theory it's not bad, but in practice it's very oxidized, probably. So it's those kinds of things. Like in theory, all these excipients might be good, but in practice they might be, like for example, very oxidized or something like that.
Yeah.
Like for example, if I take that kind of capsule, open it in my mouth, I will spit it out because Like I can taste the rancidity, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just that's my mouth telling me that don't have this.
Yeah, you shared a lot of interesting insights on supplements there in that nugget, where I agree with you on magnesium stearate, where I don't think in and of itself it is dangerous, and like the dose does make the poison. There's a niacin supplement that I personally use. We use with a lot of clients, especially when we're working on detoxification and improving cardiovascular health, and it's called rugby niacin, and it contains a little bit of magnesium stearate. And if that's the only supplement that they take that contains magnesium stearate, and they're doing things like daily detoxification, in the bigger picture, probably not a big deal. But I do
and some products have like more than half of excipients, and some have like 5% of mag stearate. So
yes,
difference
exactly. And what you're saying is like the additives may not be causing an issue, but you see a product that contains a lot of additives as probably being correlated with a lower quality food, where the active ingredients, there probably wasn't the same degree of care put into the active ingredients if they're throwing a whole bunch of other junk in there.
Yeah, and it's the same with food. I should be the food expert. I know the labels pretty well, but there's so much that I cannot tell from the label. So I kind of have to guess. And for example, a long list of excipients or additives tell me that, like you said, that there's probably not that much care put into it. There are so many ways to drop the ball when creating a product that doesn't go into the label. So you kind of have to read between the lines, maybe.
Yeah, and supplements it's a weird space where there are so many supplements that can be life-changing for people if they're taking the right quality, the right brand, the right quantity, and they're taking it at the right time.
People have no idea. Like
no
the
idea.
Normal person doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
They take some multivitamin. They don't notice anything. And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So take us through a little bit of your selection criteria. When you pick up a food on the shelves, what are some of the things that you're looking for, a food or a supplement? How do you gauge if something is going to be health promoting or if it's something that should go back on the shelf?
I always want to taste it. And for example, here is a product that looks good.
So that's what is that? Carlson Tokaman Supra Bio.
Yeah, so it's not just some synthetic tocopherol. It's pretty much a full
That's
spectrum.
A form of vitamin E tocopherols?
Yeah, tocopherols and tocotrienols. So it's at least pretty much a full spectrum. And it looks good in every way. But when I taste it, it's rancid, and it actually makes me feel kind of nauseous a little bit. So I wouldn't know without tasting. So now I tasted it. I'm not ordering this again.
Interesting. So those are like soft gels, right? So do you bite into them and actually taste? You bite into it?
Always. Yeah? Like any soft gel, I always actually bite them through.
This is fascinating. You're doing what we would do in the wild if we were hunting or gathering, right? You come across a berry or some sort of plant, you taste it and see how your body responds, and if it's a positive response, then good to go, and if not, you spit it out.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you go out in the nature, if you just randomly bite into something, there's a pretty good chance that it's actually fine to eat. Of course, there are risks, but there's a pretty good chance. If you bite into something that you order randomly from iHerb or Amazon, there's almost no chance that it's going to be any good. It's like less than 1% chance.
This is real interesting. Carrie on our team was in Colombia a couple of weeks ago. So his brother Grant and I, we'd gone to Cuba for Grant's birthday for a few days, and Carrie had gone to Colombia. And the last day when he was leaving, he'd ordered some meat, and he took a bite of meat, and he bit in and had like a weird crunch, and then said the flavor that came into his mouth wasn't right. And his mind was going, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out. And he didn't, and he swallowed it. And he spent the whole flight home. He was thrown up 4 times. He's in the middle seat. He's like, I've never used those little airplane bags. He goes, and I was filling them up one after another. because I didn't listen to my body's visceral reaction when I bit in and experienced that flavor. This is really fascinating that you've applied that to supplements.
Yeah, I mean, that's the basic instinct that we all should have, and our ancestors probably have had, because we're still here. So nowadays we have this weird, twisted worldview that there is always this big brother who is doing all the thinking for us, doing all the testing for us. And like almost all the normal people, for example, here in Finland, the basic argument is always like, okay, like the stuff is very interesting, but I cannot really believe in what you're saying, because I cannot believe that anything that's bad for us could be allowed to be sold to us, for example, in the stores. Like people believe that there is this big brother who is always looking after us, and they don't have any other agenda. So so that's kind of funny. When I got into the situation where the system could not help me, they just couldn't offer me any hope, then I was like, okay, from now on in this life, I'm on my own. Nowadays, I'm not on my own, because let's say out of every 20 or 10 people that I meet, one might be the kind of person that I can like totally trust. And yeah, so nowadays I'm not alone in this world anymore, but I'm always prepared to kind of be like that. I don't take it by faith that if somebody says something, then it's always going to be good for me, or it's always going to be true, or anything like. I'm not naive like that anymore. But the basic consumer, the normal consumer, is like incredibly naive in the way they approach their shopping.
Well, I think that there is a certain level of naivety to it. There's also, when we have so much going on in our modern lives, so much responsibility that's placed upon us. And I don't think we even recognize how much this constant state of connectivity with social media and our phones and the internet has us feeling like we need to always be responding to the demands of other people, and, you know, get to inbox 0 and respond to your Instagram messages, and make sure, you know, if 200 people have wished you happy birthday, you have to now go individually thank each of them on your birthday, and you're like, I just want to chill out and enjoy my birthday, right? But part of what you expressed there that I resonate with a lot too was this shift where I realized I went to 12 doctors trying to figure out what was going on with, you know, when I was fatigued and felt like my body was breaking down in 2011. And after the 12th one, I had the same moment that you had, which was, this is on me. My health is my responsibility. And I realized that I was outsourcing it. I wasn't taking control of my health. I wasn't following my intuition. I wasn't releasing suppressed emotions from my past that were certainly playing a role and manifesting themselves physically. I wasn't consciously increasing my positive emotions. I wasn't embracing social support with other like-minded people. I wasn't deepening my spiritual connection. And I didn't really have a strong reason for living. These are all things that matter immensely, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's like, when we get to that point, that's very frustrating. And I'm sure you felt that frustration where you're like, I can't, the system isn't going to do it. There's something beautiful that happens where we take responsibility and step into our power. And it sounds like that was the turning point for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even after that, there were like so many moments where I felt like the system doesn't even allow me to even try to heal myself. Like, for example, I would order some really good like superfood powder product from the internet, and then it would have like 75 milligrams of vitamin C per serving. And then I would get a letter from the customs telling that you're breaking the law here, because back then the RDA, or the allowed amount for vitamin C in Finland, was like 60 milligrams. So I was a criminal. And
wait,
and
they limit how much vitamin C you can consume?
Nowadays they don't. Then they used to. So it's always changing a bit. And
they
so
must not be familiar with the work of orthomolecular nutrition and Linus Pauling. There's Nobel Prizes.
Yeah, but I mean, those kinds of moments happened, and it was, I, I felt like I'm just going to be depressed and give up hope. I had those moments, but then pretty much immediately I had like this voice, like in my head, telling me that, Olli, are you sure that you have done everything that you could do? Because there's one more thing now that you cannot help, but is there something that you could do better? And I was like, yeah, there's probably a million things that I could do better that I haven't really paid attention to yet. So it was always like that, and that was like, even just that mindset was getting a hang of that mindset was more than worth the price of, for example, having that diagnosis, I think.
I truly believe that like these moments of pain that, you know, anyone that's listening that maybe has gone through this type of experience or is going through this type of experience where they're looking for answers, I have an unwavering belief that these things only come to the people that can handle them. And part of our responsibility, part of the reason that they have come to us is so that we can have an impact, maybe similar to Dr. Joseph Mercola or Mike Adams. You know, for you may be going, or you may have gone through this so that you could shorten the journey for other people. And because there are millions and millions of other folks who, if it happened to them, they wouldn't have asked different questions. They wouldn't have taken the responsibility. You know, they may have had a different response. And I think that it's a testament to your character, and your story is evolving, and you're already having a ripple effect on so many other people through, you know, through your book, Supermarket Secrets, or Supermarket Survival, I'm sorry. And the work you're doing with Pudistamo and some of these other superfood brands. So we appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Starting 2007, I was reading a lot of Steve Pavlina's personal development blog.
I read Steve Pavlina too, man. This is hilarious. Yeah. We're in different parts of the world, like being influenced by some of the same people, now having a conversation about it.
Yeah. So he wrote in one of his articles that he really loves the ripple effect that he's creating and seeing in the world from his work. So ever since then, probably even before that, I was like, I want that same thing. Because it is such a great feeling. You don't know, you cannot see all those ripples, but in some part of you feels it. And then you're kind of like, the more good karma that you've created through those ripple effects, like you can directly help people, but you can also create those indirect ripple effects that can be much, much bigger. You just feel that every day, and you're like so inspired to live, because you know that this world is so much better because of you. And then you go to the local grocery store, like, okay, like this thing here wouldn't have existed without me, and you know, that's just great, because it's just win for everybody.
And it's important too, because like we'll probably mention multiple sclerosis and Lyme in the title of this episode, because some people are still in a place where they identify with that. And what I want to communicate is that these things are diseases that are basically given their name because they are a collection of symptoms. That's it, right?
Well said. Nobody even knows like the actual mechanism of the disease. So
right, and really, like, where we experience positive and negative changes in our life is when we start to identify with, when our identity shifts. Right? So if someone tells you because of a few symptoms that you have multiple sclerosis, or someone tells you because of a few symptoms, or maybe even because of a test and the presence of a bacteria, that you have Lyme disease, and there's an immense connection between those two diagnoses, and then you start identifying with that, it's going to take you down a very different path than if you say, all right, I was given this name, this label was placed upon me because of a collection of symptoms, but I can make those symptoms disappear, right? You then haven't taken on the identity, and it allows you a very different trajectory than if you were to say, I have Lyme disease, I have multiple sclerosis, right? So anyone listening, like, make sure that this has not become a part of your identity. And if it has, that can change in a moment. It's your decision.
Yeah, exactly. I think Ken Wilber, you're probably familiar with him also.
No.
Ken
tell me about Ken.
Yeah, some people say that he's like the wisest philosopher or so, whatever. He's a modern philosopher, still alive. And he has this, and some other people also have this integral theory where consciousness develops through certain steps usually. And then when you're at the integral level, you start being able to look at this whatever thing from different angles at the same time. And then even above that a little bit, you start seeing that every word even, or every concept that we have, it's just a map, it's not the territory. So I think a diagnosis is like that. People who aren't like in the super high levels in their consciousness or in their way of thinking, they're like, okay, I have this disease, and it's like a death sentence. They kind of, you give them a map and they're like, this is the truth, and then they run into a wall because the wall wasn't in the map. Because in reality, there are so many more nuances than you can ever put in any sort of map. So I think that's the way I see these diagnoses nowadays. Let's say that if tomorrow I felt some kind of MS symptom, I wouldn't be like it's a binary, like I didn't have MS and now I have. It wouldn't be like that. It's just something that we know so little about, and it's just some small nuance, and I can make it better for the day after tomorrow or something like that. And I think that whenever you're in a very bad place, the moment of victory is not when you're completely out of the hole. The moment of victory is when you can make when you can even noticeably slow down the rate of your descent to the bottom, let alone when you actually start climbing up. So I remember that moment, like I said, 2015, the late 2015, I felt like now this is actually going to a bit better direction. So then extrapolating from that, I'm like, okay, if I just keep this same trajectory, then I will be in much better condition maybe a year from now. And it didn't really stop there. I was never like, okay, now I'm completely healed. I was like, I want to be better at tennis and music and everything than I was ever before. And then pretty soon I was, like 2007, I was winning the kinds of tennis competitions that I had never won before the diagnosis. Like, for example, I won the B class national championships in tennis that I had definitely never won before. And like half of my matches, I won like 6-love or something like that. So like everything that I had lost, my motor skills, I got back and then some. And then also I went to, without any training really, I went to try a Cooper test. I don't know, do you have a Cooper test? The kind of test where you run in 12 minutes, you have 12 minutes time to run as long as you can. As far as you can.
So not exactly. In high school soccer, varsity soccer, we used to have to run 2 miles in 12 minutes, which was the dread of my preseason training, and usually ended with me finishing the last couple laps with a simultaneous sensation that I needed to vomit and crap my pants. But I've never done it where you just see how far you can run in 12 minutes, but it was pretty much the same type of test.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing sports, my record was 3,250 meters, which is pretty much like 2 miles, maybe something like that. And then, yeah, but then after getting myself getting my health back, without training, without really doing sports, I just went to the track and I went 200 meters more, which was like 3,450. So that was pretty cool. I probably couldn't do that much at this moment. I weigh a bit more now also, but it was pretty cool to see things like that. So whenever somebody is feeling like, oh no, I have this diagnosis and I want to get rid of it, I I want to tell them that, are you sure? Like I don't want to get rid of anything. I just want to be in a much better shape than I was ever before.
Yes, yes, I
Like,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, because health is such a dynamic thing. It's not just whether you have something or not. It's a dynamic thing. It's a very, yeah, there's so much more to it than we can ever know.
Yeah, totally
I
agree.
think there's one more thing that I want to add to something that we
Yeah.
talked previously. I really like your spiritual perspective that everything happens for a reason, and whenever life gives you a challenge, you have whatever you need to win over that. But and I always thought like that. And then I was watching a video by Tai Lopez maybe 2 years ago, and Tai gave another perspective, a very cynical one, but also a very considerable one, that when you actually look at most people don't end up very good. So the point of Tai Lopez was that you should be maybe not too scared, but you should be like, you should use that a bit as a motivation. Like, the universe is not going to make sure that you're going to end up good. Like,
Right.
if you don't do anything, that's going to happen. So that was a really good point too. For so many times in my path, I felt this like supernatural kind of guidance, and very like unbelievable things happen. Like I feel like I'm guided and all of that. But then also there's this part of me using whatever emotions that I have to just push forward, basically.
Yeah.
So there's both, and you will need both. Some people go too much in that direction, that I will just have to wait for the guidance by the universe, and then like 5 years goes by and nothing happens. I've seen that also.
I have as well. And I think I reflect on that often, because it seems like the ingredients, like it's a lot like baking a cake, and some of the ingredients, you need to do the right hard things every day. You know, the things that help you evolve physically and spiritually and emotionally. Like, it's hard for me to meditate, but I approach things from a place of greater alignment when I do. So if I carve out that 10 minutes per day, like today I was in the sauna, I just set the timer for 10 minutes, wrapped my phone in a towel, and then did my thing and logged the time. But it was hard for me to do it, right? I know the rest of the day is going to go better. Getting a workout in, you know, getting the sauna in that I mentioned, finishing with a cold shower. These are all things that are challenging and uncomfortable, but produce a better, the way that I show up in life that day and that week when I'm doing those things is improved. It's elevated, right? And then also having a trust for the things that we don't control, you know, then having this, okay, it happens for a reason. I'm going to surrender to that. I'm going to focus on the things that I can control. And you look at a lot of these, the great athletes, they're competitive. You know, LeBron James is back in the gym a couple days after he wins a championship. Michael Jordan would imagine his competitors training and outworking him, and that fear was part of what drove them. So I think it's like this combination of like fear, doing the right hard things, and then being wise enough to identify what you don't control and surrendering to that. And when all that comes together, it usually results in a continuous, not necessarily linear, but a continuous ascension.
Yeah, very, very well said. We could be talking with the same words about anything. Now we're talking about healing, but it's a similar process like anything that's very demanding, and you will need to get a lot of pieces right.
Yep. What do you do differently than most people? Whether it's nutrition, the way that you set up your living environment. We've covered some of the psychology that differentiates you from people who may surrender to a diagnosis. But tell me, what are some of the things that you do differently?
That's such a great question. I mean, where do I start? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's great. Well, for example, the place I'm at right now, this is a friend of mine. I had never met her before. She's one of the people who are following my social media, and she was like, yeah, she's going to give me her keys, and now I'm here.
Mhm.
I hadn't met her before, and we had a great time with her and her boyfriend, and also another woman that I met just recently, and we had just an amazing great time. And people in Finland don't really do like that. They they don't form deep relationships that fast. The reason I can do it nowadays, I didn't start out as a people person at all. I was very awkward socially, still am to some extent. But for example, the way I do social media, it's kind of based on, I would say, first principles in the way that Elon Musk uses the word. Like he's not going to look at what other people have done. He's not going to look at the average cost or the lowest cost of rockets. He's going to look at the first physical principles that, okay, like how much energy according to physics do we need to lift this much material up, and that kind of thing. And then he can get the theoretical lowest possible level, and that can be like 1,000 times less than the best efforts nowadays. So it's kind of the same for me. I don't look, I'm a bit autistic in that way, that I don't naturally look at what other people do, and I don't feel like I have to do things the same way. So I can kind of ignore the bad habits of the culture and create my own without really asking or needing any permission. I'm 36. I shouldn't be living like this. I should be home. I should be at work. But I'm having fun at this Rovaniemi place with people I didn't know like a month ago. So that's the same with everything. Like, for example, I know that I shouldn't eat with my hands, but I like to do it that way, so I do it often. And today or yesterday, I was explaining to my new friend that I like the kinds of meals that I don't have to prepare. So
Mm-hmm.
there was this fish that I was eating with my bare hands, and then there was sauerkraut, kimchi type of sauerkraut, and then there was organic rucola or some kind of green, strong tasting greens there, and I was just munching on those. So I do everything differently. If it like I start with first principles, and my first principle is that, do I like this, and is this good for me? And I don't care much about anything else. Do I like this, and is it good for me? Sometimes I also can do things that I don't like at the moment so much, like your meditation. I can do a bit of those, but mostly I look for things that are like appealing and enticing to me, so that I will kind of gravitate to them or do those quite naturally without much willpower, and then just make sure that they are of such quality that they are good for me. For example, if I crave candy, it's probably not good for me, but if I crave the same candy and I have this, then it's a better idea.
So that's the putti rhodiola with some superfood honey.
Yes.
Puhti. Is that available in the U.S.?
Actually, the brand is Arctic Warriors.
Arctic Warriors. All right, Arctic Warriors putti.
Yeah, it's probably not available there, but you probably can find them in most biohacking events, at least in Finland.
Yeah.
Uh,
You guys have some
so
great stuff at those events.
yeah, I mean, just amazing, like super inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, what I do differently, like everything I said there was completely different, and much different than many people would have expected. Many people would expect that, okay, this guy, this Olli with the MS diagnosis, poor him, like he must be living a very limited life. He must be thinking about his health all the time and not doing anything fun ever. So it's complete opposite. It's complete opposite, because you can have like this fourfold square. Like, for example, like these things up here are good for you, and these things are here are things that you like to do.
So
And then
you're
when
creating like an X and Y axis, where like on the X axis you have like
pleasure,
Pleasure. Okay.
And then y-axis is like, is it good for you?
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So you always look for the, let's say, upper right corner where you
Mm-hmm.
combine those. So I always look for that in everything, in
Mm-hmm.
my even supplements, but my foods, but also my, shall we say, workout or whatever. My workout is so that I don't do workout because it's not upper right corner for me. It might be good for me, but it's a bit demanding, and I have to schedule time for it, and it's not a win-win-win in every race. But I'm in a pretty good condition because, like for example, yesterday we went to the Santa Claus Park or something like that, and we stayed like maybe 3 hours just like we found some sleighs, and then we were like using them as snowboards and doing all sorts of crazy fun. And I still have like bruises around my body because we were having a bit too much fun, but that was my workout. And that was upper right corner because it didn't take anything away from me. It wasn't unpleasurable, it was very pleasurable, but also I didn't even have to schedule or take time for it. It was just like we were there anyway, and we were having fun anyway, but doing physical things in that setting made it even more fun. So I think that's by far the biggest thing that I do completely differently than most people would, and totally differently than most people would ever think to do, let alone think that a person with a chronic condition like me would ever do. Like my life is so ridiculously fun often, and when it isn't, it just means that I haven't innovated enough in some area of my life yet.
Yeah, the two things that I'm really gathering from what you just shared are you've heightened your intuition. You know, you're checking in with yourself very regularly, even
Yeah, how does this affect me, and also
Mhm.
do I enjoy this? Yeah, I look
Yes.
for those both inside me, because that's the only place where you can look for those.
Yes, yeah, and so you're turning up the intuition, and then you're also intentionally creating. And I say creating because it's like you've taken
Creating and
responsibility.
searching and looking for and testing and trying out and all of that.
Yeah, you're creating more joy in your life,
Yeah,
and
and
like, and
also more benefit. Yeah,
yeah, more benefit. Yeah, is
both at the
this
same
going to
time.
benefit
Yeah,
me long term? Is it going to be fun right now? Where this differs from, you know, back in, you know, the early 2000s when you received that label and you kind of just went off traveling, right? And then you were
yeah,
kind of like, all right, I'm over this. It's, you know, I've sort of done the hedonistic thing, and, you know, went and like checked a whole bunch of bucket list boxes, and now you're weaving it in where it's things that bring you joy now, multiple times throughout the day, even if it's a brief moment, but then they also benefit you long term, and help you to have more happiness, which I think is like um, a bit of a more long-term reflection of many moments of joy, you know, compounded.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
Yeah,
that's
there
fascinating.
is a happiness bank account in a way. I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and it's lots of little joy deposits. Um,
yeah. And I think that the really one of the main things is that it's very easy to maintain habits that come naturally for you, and that you feel drawn to.
mhm.
So that's why I like easy and pleasurable habits more than difficult and unpleasurable habits. Just because, of course, joy is good, happiness is good, but also it's just those are the ones that will maintain themselves without my supervision, in a way. As long as I just make sure that they are also good for me. So that's why I'm always trying to find those upgrades, not try to uh, keep myself from doing something bad, but just trying to find a better option. And if it doesn't exist in the market, I will work with some companies to create it, for example, or I will search, I will innovate, I will help companies innovate, whatever. That's the way I want to create a sort of paradise for myself in this world and in this life, step by step. Just finding out something that I don't like about life yet so much, and then trying to find the upper right corner solution, or create it with a team, for example.
What?
And then once we have the solution, then it's all about spreading it to the culture at large, so that I also can go anywhere, and people are already doing it there. For example, it was very difficult for me to, my life wasn't so free and so happy for a long time, because I still had to pay a lot of attention to my nutrition. I had to prepare whenever I would go anywhere, because if I went to people's homes, they would have white sugar, they would have white flour, and not so much else. You know what I mean, in a way. And nowadays I can go to people's homes, and even if they are normal people, even if they aren't biohackers or some weird health nut people, they will have kombucha in their fridge instead of soda and things like that. But also, if I go to wherever I go, I can find so much better food nowadays. So in a way, I feel like some of my work is done there already. I'm pretty happy about the state of the food thing here in Finland.
So what you're saying,
based on my own experience, yeah.
So rather than you trying to change yourself and asking questions like, what do I need to do differently to be less affected by some of these processed foods, you focused on expanding the collective consciousness so that more and more people are adopting healthy foods, and then you're looking for you're seeing these examples where you show up to someone's house and people today have more healthy foods and things that you can pick from where maybe that wasn't in the past. So like you're looking to affect, the collective consciousness rather than like, I need to do all this work for myself so that I'm less reactive to foods that aren't perfect.
Exactly. I'm trying to always expand my bubble of joy and my bubble of freedom, and the area where I can operate in this world without the care.
I like it. What products and supplements do you find yourself recommending the most that you also use yourself?
Yeah, let's see. Magnesium. I think that goes without saying.
Do you use magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate?
This has both, and also threonate.
Threonate.
No, that's not allowed in Finland. Taurate. This has taurate.
Okay. All right. Nice.
And glycinate and malate. Yeah. So nice. It's pretty nice, and nothing else. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Buddhist company, and this B complex from the same Buddhist company. I was a part of the team developing this, so we just wanted to put the best forms of anything that we could find here. So, but B complex is something that I find myself recommending, and omega-3s. This is a krill oil. What do you think about krill oil? Because I'm still not sure. In my mouth, it tastes like it's rancid, but also I've heard that krill oil, like there is this, maybe it has to do with the phospholipids or something, that it is supposed to feel kind of like that in the mouth. So I don't know. This makes me feel pretty good. So I'm
personally, I love omega-3s. When with myself and with clients, we usually go to a high DHA omega-3. The one that we recommend is Nordic Naturals Pro DHA 1000, and then
Nordic Naturals is great. Yeah, they're great.
Nordic Naturals, they're awesome. I have never responded great to krill oils, or even like high dose astaxanthin, which is low dose astaxanthin is included in the krill oil, but my body's never responded great to it. So I tend to go back to the there's Dr. Mercola's astaxanthin, which is amazing for eye health and as a carotenoid and antioxidant for scavenging free radicals. But I've noticed I experienced a dip in libido and some other things that just I'm not crazy about. So I don't include it too much in my protocols.
Yeah, I feel the same. This and the vitamin E are the two ones that I'm testing right now that I didn't like that much.
And I love phospholipids and things that tend to improve the lipid bilayer and integrity of the cell, but I go more towards like a sunflower lecithin, a phosphatidylserine, the phosphatidylcholine, which is in the sunflower lecithin, and then the magnesiums and certain types of calcium in small amounts. I like those more for
which calcium, because I should probably do that also.
So there's a membrane complex product that I take that has a little bit of magnesium and calcium in there. Let me see if I can pull it up here and get the exact name for you. Yeah, it's by Advanced Research, and it was formulated by Hans Neiper, MD, Nieper. It's called membrane complex.
So is it calcium AEP maybe? Amino ethyl phosphate?
It is, yes. Yep, exactly. And so it's like 2 capsules contains 400 milligrams of calcium 2 AEP, magnesium 2 AEP, and potassium 2 AEP.
Yeah, I will get that. It does have some excipients, but I will have to live with that.
Yeah, I take it periodically. I don't take it all the time. I cycle it in, and I'm pretty regular with phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, and some of those other phospholipids along with the DHA. And I eat a lot of wild caught fish, and then on the metals side, just do regular detoxification to keep the metals moving and make sure my liver's working properly.
Yeah, calcium AEP was actually one of the first supplements that I bumped into when searching things for the internet. Mm-hmm. That is MS specific. It's specific for the myelin sheath.
Yeah,
should be.
Yeah, interesting. All right, my man, we got a couple rapid fire questions. Oh, you got more. Please. Sorry, keep going.
Zinc. I was also designing this one. It's zinc picolinate and a few other forms, and also some amino acids and things like that there to increase the absorption. So zinc is something I do every day, like I do magnesium.
Nice.
And then I carry my fats, coconut oil and ghee. It's just so easy to add these to anything and make the whatever meal a bit more keto on the road.
And what tends to happen too is like when we first start eating healthy, we become aware of the things that, some of the problem foods, the processed stuff, the sugar and the junk, and we cut those out. And then it's a big source of our calories has now fallen by the wayside. You can make up for that caloric shortfall with some of these healthy fats, like the coconut oil and the ghee, and make sure that you're not just dropping a ton of weight and feeling like the skeleton in the background there.
Yeah. And I mean, for me personally, in my healing the nervous system, it has been so important to get a lot of the good fats and kind of drive the bad ones out of my diet and out of my body. It's been very important. You love this. Say hello to Wade.
Oh yeah, what's up? Shout out to Wade Lightheart and the Biooptimizers team. We've got Masszymes there, and then what's the other one?
K Apex. It's not allowed in Finland, so I shouldn't have this.
That's a Biooptimizers product?
Biooptimizers, it's like very much 4 different kinds of lipases, and then also some proteases. So it's like for the keto diet. But
okay,
it's
nice.
But it's also something that if you take it on an empty stomach in the morning, it will give you a lot of energy. There's, for example, carnitine there and things like that.
Oh, very cool. All right, so it's got things for fatty acid metabolization, and it's kind of like Masszymes, but for people that are eating a ketogenic nutritional template.
Yeah. Okay. And they will probably advise you to take both, even if you're eating keto. But
okay.
Yeah, I've ordered a ton of from this company because I really like this.
Yeah, Biooptimizers makes some fantastic products. They've been a sponsor on the podcast. I've used their digestive reset protocol with many clients, and we've had some great success with it. Yeah.
Amazing. And then there's also an electrolyte powder, which I was also designing, and it has like magnesium, potassium, and also salt, but different kinds of forms, pretty good forms, and also some other things there.
That's big.
Nice.
I'm finding a lot of people are deficient in electrolytes these days,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if it's the the paleo nutrition template and the ketogenic nutrition template, which just increases our demand of and our body's utilization of electrolytes, where we need to make sure we're taking more in, or if it has something to do with heavy metals and the body's processes for buffering certain oxidizers and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. One of the signs that we need more electrolytes is just that we're going to the bathroom all the time. And so that if that's affecting anyone listening, may just be as simple as upping your electrolytes.
Yeah, I mean, people from this product, I've heard more feedback than from, I think, anything, like maybe ever. Just giving this to a friend and then having them call me like, what did you give me? Like, where do I get more of that?
And these
So
are all from
like,
Pudistamo?
Yeah. I have
Many of them.
maybe half of my stuff is maybe from Pudistamo. Yeah, the ones that Pudistamo doesn't have yet, or that we haven't designed or brought to the market yet, those I order usually from iHerb or directly from the manufacturers. Then there's also vitamin C. It's like half synthetic, half natural. Also some sodium ascorbate there to make it easier. So yeah, that's nice. And then there's also collagen powder. I think it's a good idea to have some of that sometimes. Like if I, for example, here, the tap water here in Rovaniemi is really good. So I find the biggest jug that I can find, and then I put some electrolyte there, and then sometimes I put a bit of collagen there also, and just keep drinking that. So yeah, it's nice and easy. Then I also have, I don't find myself recommending this too much because some some things are pretty difficult to order to Finland, but yeah, the ancestral supplements.
Grass-fed trachea, that's from Ancestral Nutrition?
Yeah, ancestral supplements is the company.
Ancestral supplements.
Yeah, actually here I have a mix. It's just one of those. I have many different freeze-dried beef organs here. Yeah, it's easy, especially when you're traveling, to get some of those organ meats that you just don't get too much of normally.
Yeah, for sure. This is fantastic. Last two questions. Do you have
one more? Activated charcoal. That's a staple.
Nice.
Activated charcoal. Yeah.
And you take that to bind to toxins and help move them out of the body?
Yeah, pretty much like Dave Asprey would. Sometimes just taking a few of those before going to sleep, and whenever I'm feeling, I do a lot of that. I think it's really good. And then there's also John Barron is a good guy, and his baseline nutritionals. Here's a metal magic, which is for heavy metal, especially mercury removal, especially from the brain. So there's cilantro, there's chlorella, and then there's fulvic acid. So this is a good one.
Nice.
And of course, you will always need to have your men's formula, and then also the women's formula. So just super strong herbal extracts to feel a bit more like a man.
The women's formula, you're carrying that around as a gift. Did you take it?
No, I don't take it, but it has an unadvertised effect of maybe, how should I say it? You probably know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I mean anything that has to do with the hormones, it's always a lot more fun that way.
All right, interesting. So you use the women's formula for some of the hormonal effects?
No, I mean I don't use, but
okay.
Let's say if I'm with someone special, then maybe she might use it.
Okay, all right, I got you. So it is something that your friends can take advantage of. All right, very cool. Do you have any recommendations for people, like some of our friends and clients live in countries that have similar regulations to Finland? and they want to get certain supplements and nutraceuticals and vitamins in. But do you have any recommendations for ways to work around those systems?
Yeah, I mean, one is to look for the nearest Biohacker Summit, and then have a lot of cash in there and buy supplements for the whole year.
Okay.
That's something that I'm going to be doing. And then there's also, like, for example, these baseline nutritionals I cannot order from the United States, but just Google baseline nutritionals EU, and then I find like 1 or 2 places and then order from there. So the same with ancestral supplements. And actually nowadays, in their own website, I think they have a link for the EU thing. And also I could just maybe write them an email and ask, how can I get this to Finland? And they will probably be glad to help.
There you go. All right. So,
but of course, there's also, like, for example, I shouldn't have this. This is like so illegal in Finland.
Full spectrum CBD?
Yeah, and this is maybe not quite as illegal, but it's just CBD.
Okay.
And but yeah, there's always ways.
There's always ways. So find your closest Biohacker Summit, and then stock up for the year. Contact the companies, let them know, that you're interested in their products, and ask if they have any recommendations for how to get them.
Yeah, actually, exactly. But because companies are always looking for for customers. So if you're so enthusiastic as to actually write them an email and ask them to help you out, then if I was the company, I'd be like, I want to help this person because they're like they appreciate our work so much that they want to go the extra mile to get our products. It's also the same with if I want some really high quality product, not from the supermarket, but from the local farmers. It's their problem how they will get it to me, because they are incentivized to find customers who appreciate them. So if I'm like, hey, I'm a customer who really appreciates your work, they're like, okay, we'll hook you up.
Yep. There's a big lesson here, and that is like speaking what you want to create in your life, or like what you would like more of in your life, into existence. There's a place called Acumedical in Boynton that's right by me, and they have ozone, but they were only doing saline ozone, right? So they would ozonate saline water, and then that would be administered via IV. But personally, and what the work that we do with clients, we do a lot more with blood ozone, major autohemotherapy, where you take some blood out, you ozonate the blood, run it through a UV light in this process called ultraviolet blood radiation, and then put it back in. We found that to work much better. So I tried the saline because I wanted to be open-minded, didn't experience the same benefits or the same lift. So I said to them, and I was like, hey, when are you guys going to get some major autohemotherapy with ultraviolet light in here? I called them a week ago, and they're like, hey, we've got it. Come on in, And so they would have no idea if I hadn't voiced that. And a lot of these companies would not realize that there was demand and interest in some of these things. So just encouraging all you guys listening to put it out there. And it doesn't mean that it's going to manifest in 100% of these situations, but it is a much higher probability of coming into your life than if you don't say anything at all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same for everything. Like, the key to getting anything in life is to take steps that way, because that's what most people don't do. And there's a good reason for that. I remember feeling so brain fogged and so tired that I wouldn't, and so distracted by all sorts of distractions, that I would have these ideas and not just be able to move toward that. But when I eliminate all the social media apps from my phone for a while, and I just lie down as long as I need to. And then when I have the energy, I just take one step toward that. Maybe writing an email, maybe calling somebody, maybe Googling something, maybe ordering a book, whatever you do. And then taking enough of those steps will get you there. And it's easier than people would think. Brian Tracy said one day that if you just study something for 1 hour a day, then in 3 years you will be a local expert, and in 5 years you will be a national name, and in 7 years you will be an international name. And like only 1 hour, but yeah, that's all it takes, because mostly we are so ineffective. we don't even go for our dreams even one focused hour a day, or whatever it is in our life that we should pay attention to. But if we just do it, then we will make progress. So it's very simple.
I love it. Anyone listening, whatever your dream is, take a little bit of action towards it today. And
yeah, like
tomorrow.
1 hour of focused action, whatever you think will get you in that direction. One focused hour a day, and you will get there. That's I've used a lot of that. Like, for example, when I was feeling all those symptoms of MS, I would study 1 hour a day of health, and then maybe spend another hour implementing those things, and maybe maybe another hour, for example, like cooking or going for groceries, like 3 hours a day. And yeah, it took me quite far, quite soon.
When you look at the fact that most of us have at least 16, probably more, because very few people are sleeping a full 8 hours, there's still a lot of day left there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Olli Posti, this has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to connect and share some of your journey with everyone. Where can people who have enjoyed this conversation follow you on social media, pick up your books, and stay in the loop with cool things you're working on with Pudistamo and some of these other superfood companies that you're aligned with?
Yeah, well, still all of my stuff is in Finnish language, so that's quite a barrier. But I do have a webpage, olliposti.com, and there's like 1 or 2 articles maybe there. That's all that I have at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, next year I will have more. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram, Olli Posti Instagram, and you will see what's going on in my life, and when I will come out of my cave and do more things in English.
Love it, love it. OLLIPOSTI on Instagram and olliposti.com.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. I've appreciated this conversation so much. I got a lot of value from it, and I think our listeners have as well. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and thanks for your amazing podcast. I've been going through a lot of those episodes, and I will continue to do that. It's full of gems. So.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, if your podcast existed like 15 years ago when I was at my lowest, it wouldn't have taken me that many years to figure things out. So thanks for making it so much easier for so many people who are in similar situation in their lives.
Thank you.
Like we have been. Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's been a big part of our mission. Like when I was my most frustrated, I just said I wanted to create a book and resources so that people didn't have to suffer the way that I was suffering and experience the frustration the way that I was experiencing at that point in time. So to hear that that's happening is fantastic. And for anyone listening that has benefited at all from this episode or any episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show podcast, our one ask is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and 5-star would be ideal, but whatever you feel authentic and aligned with, that would be appreciated. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Olli.
Thanks. See you at the biohacking circuit.
Absolutely, my man.
Right.
Take care.
Bye.